We've mentioned this quite a few times now about photographing events and weddings when you're ill. Have you ever had something called...
I think I had one in a Mexican restaurant once.
Yeah. No, that's enchiladas.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's for a man. It's where you get something happens with your undercarriage, and it feels like you've been kicked by a camel, frankly. And I just like it known. I've photographed weddings with flu, runny noses, bad arm, bad leg, whatever, and I've always managed to get through it. God only knows how I managed not to wince. Nobody would have known.
That does sound painful. Saying it sounds painful.
Yeah, that was my wedding on Saturday.
Yeah.
Whew.
Well done. Good for you.
I'm awarding myself a medal. What have you been up to this week?
I have been workshops, and I have been workshops, wedding in Cardiff last weekend. Stuff.
You're still looking tired.
The Fujicast.
I bet you're looking forward to your Hispaniola holiday, aren't you?
I am indeed. I'm very much looking forward to that.
The last couple of years, it's crept in that you've actually disappeared during the holiday to go and do a bit of work. Are you going to be doing that this year?
Well, I'll take some stuff with me. I'll take some...
No, but you actually went to photograph some weddings.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did last year. You did one wedding. 2 weddings.
What?
I'm sure you did.
No, I would have remembered, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, no, a month in Spain, no weddings.
Okay.
I did, Fujifilm came out to record some
Fujifilm
footage.
came out to do some stuff.
Yeah. I definitely did.
I thought you shot off and did a couple of weddings.
No, my word, no. This year I have to be back for the 31st of August because I have a wedding then. But
so you're
kids,
coming back before the kids?
The kids, no. We all come back together because the 31st, the kids go to school on the 2nd, which is the Monday. So we'd be back anyway.
All right.
28th of July to the 31st of August.
We are going to do a show, 3 shows at least, I think, with Kev's going to be by the pool and I'm going to be here in the UK in the studio. So
yeah, looking forward to that. That'll be good.
So this week on the show, thank you first of all to our friends at Simpler Straps for letting us give away a Simpler camera strap each. As we said last week, max function, minimal bulk, great for smaller pro grade cameras, and we've got one to give away each to our favourite questions of the week. And if you'd like to go and see the Simpler site, you can, simpler.us. There are your questions, of course, which we'll launch with in a moment. Thank you for sending your questions in. Make sure they come to, not through the Facebook group now that we've introduced it to you, but click at fujicast.co.uk. Facebook group, by the way, great place to go and have conversations.
Yeah, and if there are, we don't want to discourage kind of questions or anything in there, I suppose. So if there are questions in there that, we'll probably just dig into it there rather than kind of the stuff specific for the podcast has to come via click at fujicast.co.uk.
Don't stop sending show questions in.
No. It will really confuse this amazing system we've got in place.
Lifeblood of the show.
The lifeblood of the show.
Oh, when Steve sent in those mugs, which we've still got here, by the way, I'm having tea out of mine this week. I can't go too much with it because it's slopping everywhere. Hold on. Yeah. But so we got the Don't Forget the Social in Social Media mugs, which I think is great merch. What about the lifeblood of the show?
The lifeblood of the show, definitely. Yeah.
Let me just put that carefully down there. I don't want to get tea everywhere.
Yeah.
Also this week on the show we are going to hear from one of the speakers at this year's X Weddings conference. How's that all going?
Okay, yeah, good. Tickets going, so it's not a profit-making thing, or kind of expenses get covered, but that's it. So if you are thinking of coming, and I really wouldn't leave it too late because we only have space for 65 people, I think, on the keynote day. I want to specifically, or we want to try and keep it as small and intimate as possible. Because last year I think that worked really well. Rather than it being a really big anonymous conference, I think it worked really well with the numbers. So we're going to keep it the same. And come along, x-weddings.co.uk.
Shall I launch with Kevin's for months now been saying to me we should go paperless on this show, and what with Glastonbury going plasticless, he's driving. We've always had stuff on bits of paper. I've been very old-fashioned radio kind of way with this. but we're going to go. So I've still got a few on bits of paper here, and you've got a few. But then we're going paperless. It's all off the screen.
Yeah.
And the screen is a Mac. It's a Mac screen, and so therefore the size of the screen here, Kev can hardly read the writing. So this is going to be
I have to squint a bit.
Interesting experiment. Hi Neil and Kev, really enjoying the show. You guys make a great team. One with a great following. That's you. One with a voice.
You've got a great following. You've got a great following, and also I do have quite a nice voice too.
Anyway, my question: what do you think it is that draws Fujifilm shooters to either the XT series or the X Pro? I have both, but as much as I want to be identified as an X Pro shooter, it just seems the XT line has more features and practicalities. Bigger, better EVF, yes, it does. More knobs and dials. Does it? Yeah. Yes, it does, of course. Yeah, more available accessories, i.e. battery grip. Yes, it does. Knowing that you guys are in opposing camps on this, I thought you both would be in an ideal position to comment. Does it just boil down to the image of a photographer and how we like to be portrayed, which it sounds to me like it is for you? I guess for me it comes down to wanting to be like Kevin, but sadly I'm more like Neil. Thank you very much. Do you know what? In retaliation, I forgot to actually copy across your name, but it's ICAM Hope, which I assume is a handle from New Zealand. Good job you're in New Zealand, otherwise my hand would be coming across now. Little clip round the ear.
Very
well, I'm sorry that you feel like you're more like me. Go on then. So, but you actually do use the XT3 now, don't you?
I do.
In preference to the X Pro 2.
Yeah, well, along with the X Pro 2. So. The XT3 is a better camera than the X Pro 2, functionally.
Yeah.
It is simple as that. That's unequivocal.
Yeah.
Unequivocal. The reason why I prefer the X Pro range over the XT range is simply down to the fact that it's nicer to use. It's more fun. I enjoy it more. I'm right-eyed, so I can shoot with that.
See, I'm left-eyed, so it makes no difference to me.
Yeah, so it's smaller, it's lighter, I like the fact that it has less buttons and dials and all of that stuff. It's a camera that's just designed really to make making pictures easier.
Yes.
Whereas the XT range is designed to be, kind of powerful and everything. Now, if and when an X Pro 3 comes along, I fully expect that to be similar functionality.
Should we take more notice of the when rather than the if that you've just mentioned?
I honestly don't know, but we can only assume that given the past of the cameras, that the X Pro
at some stage,
the X Pro Next, whatever it may be, will have the same gubbins as the XT3.
Well, there's no reason why it wouldn't.
No,
surely.
absolutely. I don't know, but yeah, presumably that's what will happen. At which point I will sell my XT3 and get to X Pro Next.
So you wouldn't use the XT3 at all?
No, I don't like it. I had this conversation.
What if the video specs remained in the XT3? Then?
Well, that would be different. Then I would keep it for that. But I had this conversation with Andreas actually a couple of weeks ago, and it was the XT3 to me is a camera that I pick up, I take to weddings, and it is phenomenal. I mean, it is phenomenal. I would never ever pick that camera up and to go out, to go shopping, to go to take the kids out. So it will come with me to Spain because I want it for filming. Yeah. But it's always X100, X Pro, or X70 are my fun cameras. The cameras that I use between work. XT3 is purely a work camera.
So I don't never take that out personally at all.
I don't enjoy using it. No,
okay,
I don't enjoy using it. But
is it because it feels just like you're back in DSLR land?
Yeah, kind of. But it's just
albeit lighter.
I don't have any kind of connection to it really, and it's I have to be careful because the XT3 is and I do use it because for wedding it is phenomenal. It is the best camera at the moment in the range for sure. And for wedding photographers and event photographers, it's the camera that's flying. They can't make them fast enough. They're flying off the shelves. No. But from a point of view of to me, it's similar to using the old DSLRs. That the ergonomics of it, the size. I'm not particularly big. I don't have massive hands, and so I like the small camera. And it's nothing to do with looking cool at all. I couldn't look less cool if I tried. But I want to use a camera that I enjoy, really, really, really enjoy using.
Well, Cam Smith, I've just looked your name up quickly. I would assume you enjoy the X Pro 2 because of all the reasons, those sort of passion reasons. Is that the correct phrase? I think it is. That Kevin's just mooted. and which seems fair enough to me. And you're right, because I think I really know I'm a left-eyed shooter, so it doesn't really make a lot of difference to me in terms of, your other eye popping out the other side of the camera and being able to use it in a true rangefinder sense.
Are you left-handed?
Nope.
You left-footed?
If I kick a football, it's a stronger, more accurate shot with my left than right. Yeah.
Wow.
What does that say?
I think you're an alien.
Oh.
Yeah.
I better put the third leg away then. That came out wrong, by the way.
Where's your enchiladas again?
I didn't mean that, kids.
Warning.
It wasn't what you thought it was. Anyway, where was I? Yes, X-Pro 2 land. Yes. I had more fun using that X-Pro 2, particularly taking it away. When I did the Daytona stories, it was such a lot of fun using that camera, and it felt right for the job as well. So
yeah.
I hope an X Pro 3 does come out.
Yeah. No, and of course not everybody, especially the professionals, non-professionals out there, are in the luxury of having choice of two cameras to use. But so if you want a camera right now at this moment in time that is functionally the best camera in the X-Trans range for Fujifilm, then that's XT3,
yeah.
Potentially XH1 as well. But the bigger cameras, the more DSLR style shaped, etc. But yeah, X Pro 2, X100, X70, all of those things are the ones that they're the ones that my go-to cameras for.
Do you watch The Angry Photographer on YouTube?
Occasionally, yeah, I have seen it.
He has all the Fuji stuff now, doesn't he? He does. I think you have to getting past his persona. So for some people, might be a bit awkward. But it's interesting to hear what he has to say about lenses and.
But his name's Ken Wheeler, I think.
Ken Wheeler, yeah,
and
causes a lot of stir in the.
Yeah, but isn't that the YouTube way? Isn't it?
Yeah.
The more clickbait you can get, the more dollars you can make, and can you blame him for? Can you? I would imagine he's got. I haven't looked for a while, but
he says quite a few interesting things about.
I would say he's got. I don't know. Tens, hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
Yeah, I think he has every single lens and every single camera Fujifilm have made. It doesn't have the new GFX yet because it's difficult to get hold of. Yeah. And the only lens he can't get hold of because he doesn't have because he says it's a crummy lens. But I disagree with him on this. Is the 18mm, and you love that 18mm, don't you?
Yeah.
And I remember watching Facundo Santana working with it in Brighton Street and using that 18mm, and it was quick as anything that he needed.
Oh yeah. It's nothing to do with speed, but I mean, whatever. Ken Wheeler may have all the lenses. I've got a vast majority of them as well, but I don't use a vast majority of them.
Right, your question.
Okay, my question is from JD Miller in Virginia, USA. Gentlemen, appreciate you guys a lot. Your genuineness, insight, and quality of work. Thank you. I recently purchased an XT3. There we go. See, I'm looking for suggestions on how to learn how to operate the camera in a technical way. I'm not a professional photographer, I'm just a novice, but I think I have a basic understanding of photography concepts like exposure triangle, composition, etc. However, I'm looking for a source, class, or online training to learn how to work with XT3 specifically, and not general concepts.
Wow.
I'd say YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube's a great place to go for it. I tell you, our friend out in Belgium.
Palais Schultz.
Oh, yeah, and he's not Belgian, is he?
No, he's Danish.
Danish, yeah.
Yeah.
He does an awful lot of great YouTube films about how to use the camera in filming mode.
And can I just say a couple of things about Palais? Sorry to interject. You're right, absolutely. But he's one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life.
Really?
He is he's got something like 6 stands in 6 different martial arts. He used to be a rock star.
No way.
He's got pictures on his phone of him doing the splits at 10 feet in the air. He used to be a professional racing car driver. He's about 20 years older than he actually looks.
How old is Palais Schultz?
He's about 80 in real life, but he looks about 35. No, seriously, and he's phenomenally talented. Videographer and photographer, and his
advice online and his training and his tutorials they're short, really nice succinct, and great.
He's short, succinct, and great. Yeah. You're quite right.
in both ways.
But yeah. So YouTube, Palais Schultz would be a very, very good point, starting point. But yeah, I mean, it's not like Lynda.com or anything like that I'm aware of would have any specific XT3 type stuff. I mean, it's a little bit of a kind of wide-ranging question, but yeah, go to Palais.
Colin Buck, the value of photo books. He wrote a long piece about the value of photo books, which I'm not going to read off now, Colin. I'm going to save it for another show when we talk about photo books, but I do want to read your question. Gentlemen, to fit with Kevin's approach to the preamble, great show, interesting topics and stories, blah, blah, blah. See, that's why you should never change the way you do it. Because it's quite fun.
I won't.
People are taking the mickey.
Yeah.
What do you both think of different aspect ratios? How do you choose? And does it bug you that Fujifilm only offer 3:2, 16:9, 1:1? Would it be so hard to get custom ratios, guys, or even just EXIF encoded frame lines? Ooh. No, I don't know. All those ratios you've suggested, the only ones I would ever use anyway. I noticed Peter McKinnon, by the way, on his YouTube channel is using 17:9 now.
Yeah, that's the cinematic mode.
That's the cinematic, but it's also the ratio of not losing anything when you watch it on a smartphone.
You can shoot 17:9 video on XT3.
You can.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've started shooting some 17:9 myself.
Does it, when you look at it on YouTube though, doesn't it just look a bit flat? Like oblongy?
No. I mean, you're not putting in the fake black bars top and bottom, are you? Essentially, but what Peter was talking about was the real estate on the actual. When you look at the screen, when you look at a 16:9, there's always a little bit that's cut off at the edges.
Oh, I hate the fact that we're changing our entire life just to get on a mobile phone.
Yeah, that's true. There is that.
Depressing.
There is that.
But I think a lot of films are actually like cinema films are filmed at 17:9 now, isn't it? It's the cinematic ratio.
But is there any credence, do you think, to shooting outside those in stills?
Yeah, I kind of understand the question.
Or just crop it?
So the good thing about the Fujifilm cameras is that apart from the X-Pro 1, if you shoot at any one of those ratios, those crop ratios, and you shoot RAW, then your RAW file will come into your application pre-cropped at that ratio. So let's just say 16:9.
Yeah.
It will come in pre-cropped at 16:9. You still have the full 3:2 image or 4:3 image in there. You can uncrop to. Your JPEGs will always be cropped at that ratio. So I shoot a vast majority of my stuff actually at 16:9 ratio if I'm shooting JPEG plus RAW, because it enables me then not to have to faff about so much if I want to do a photo film. So the stills.
So you are changing the way you work for.
Yeah, but 16:9 is widescreen TV. Is not. I'm not thinking about mobile phones at that point.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start squeezing everybody in just to get them on an iPhone.
So you shoot 16:9.
16:9, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Stills, yeah. But only if I'm shooting JPEG plus RAW.
Right.
Or RAW as well. Right. But if I was shooting just JPEG, then I probably wouldn't. The GFX, of course, has a lot more ratios. You can do a lot more crop stuff. So yeah, I mean, I would imagine it's quite a technical challenge for the engineers to do something like that, especially with the raw files. So I wouldn't expect too much in the future. What I would love to see is crop overlays, like the Fibonacci spiral. We have the rule of thirds, but the diamonds, all of that, to be able to have those in the viewfinder.
Yeah, now there is a camera that does that.
Is there?
There's not one of the Fujifilm ones.
No. I've suggested to Fuji several times, so who knows what would happen.
Your question, then we'll do the self-indulgent moment for the week, because we missed it last week.
Okay, all right, yes. So this is David Richards. Great podcast. I used
to go to school with a guy called David Richards.
It must be him, surely.
Yeah.
Great podcast. I tend to price weddings on the watches they are wearing. This is brilliant. I tend to price the weddings on the watches they are wearing, their shoes, or the car parked outside. Just back from a wedding in Glasgow. My wife's second shot. New camera, XT30. XT3 was a bit cumbersome. Didn't touch my usual X-Pro 1. XT3 was a bit cumbersome, so using the XT30.
Right.
That's weird. Maybe it's just a bit too big. XT30 is smaller.
Right.
What's the best way to process the volume, as color coding for parts of the day is taking ages? Star rating is working in a fashion, but the shots from the three cameras are mixed together, as I didn't sync frame numbers. I like to present a mix of black and white and color, but I'm never sure how to divide the day up, so there is a decent flow of images, etc. I've tried splitting inside, outside, prep ceremony, dinner, etc. and nothing seems to flow quite right. Your methods would be greatly appreciated.
Go on, Kev.
I don't need a camera strap.
Go on, Kev.
But if you want to send one, I live in France, so it will cost you an arm and a leg. Okay.
There's a lot there.
There is a lot there.
Break it down.
Okay, don't price people on the watches they're wearing. I have a Fitbit, and it doesn't work very well.
I do ask, on that note though, when I'm having a chat with somebody, although I do have set prices, but I am intrigued by what they're planning on their day, because it can make a difference to what additional things they may wish for me to do. For example, if they say, "Wow, Neil, we've got Madonna's coming up, and she's playing a couple of numbers." I don't know where that came from. Or we've got a fleet of Rolls Royces taking all our guests up the driveway, or I'm being a bit absurd, I think now, but you know what I mean. If they've got a massive band, and then they've got
tell you stuff
fish
like
and chip vans and stuff like that, and outside just for the guests to have fun with in the evening, then there's going to be a bigger spend, isn't there?
I had a wedding
That's a good thing.
I had a wedding a couple of weeks ago where they didn't tell me anything about the day, which is often the case, by the way, for me.
And you got flown in by helicopter?
No. But I was in the ceremony, and there was a girl and a boyfriend at the back of the church, and they had the Jack Russell.
Right.
And I thought...
What, in a ceremony?
Yeah, and I thought, maybe, some people just can't be without their pets or whatever. Right. So I didn't think anything of it. And I was at the back of the church. It was, beautiful wedding, beautiful ceremony. Got to the ring exchange time. Yeah. And the priest said, and now it's time to exchange the rings, and Bob is going to bring the rings to us. I'm thinking, who the heck's Bob?
Who's Bob?
Bob comes tearing between my legs. Seriously. Came tearing literally between my legs, because I'm stood in the middle of the aisle here, with the rings tied around his neck. Obviously, Bob is the Jack Russell.
Dog, yeah.
The rings come.
Assuming that's not the father of the bride.
The rings come flying off.
Oh no!
And of course, in these old churches, there's drains everywhere and grills, so everybody's diving on the floor trying to catch these rings, which they did. The dog disappeared down didn't make it to the front, disappeared down a pew somewhere. Right. And I was like, I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known that was going to happen. But I suppose. But the thing is, interestingly, sorry, Dave, we've gone a little bit off
tangent.
But interestingly, I think as a I call myself a documentary photographer. So actually, the less I know, the more documentary it is.
Yeah, because you're being reactionary rather than planning and contriving these shots.
True.
Yeah.
So
we do bit by bit. What was the next bit?
Next bit was
a well-loaded.
My wife's second shot, new camera XT30. XT3 was a bit cumbersome. Okay, and didn't touch my usual X-Pro one. Fair enough. That's a choice of cameras. Okay, what's the best way to process the volume, as color coding for parts of the day is taking ages? Star ratings is working in a fashion. Ultimately, how do you mix black and white and color? Is essentially what you're saying.
Islands.
Yeah, islands of colour.
Islands of colour, or islands of black and white.
Although he does mention he's tried that and it didn't work.
No. Oh, yes, he did.
I've noticed recently blog posts, a lot of the young and trendy folks out there tending to just throw their images together on blog posts in no chronological order and no kind of black and white.
What? So you might have speeches first and some bridal prep pictures at the end.
Totally random.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know whether that's a trend or whether it's a laziness. I mean, I find it really difficult to look at the images, I must say.
I think.
But
it's one of those stories
that
that needs chronological order, really, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
But these people are a lot younger than us.
All right. We ready?
Well done, David.
Thank you, David. Self-indulgent moment. We didn't do it last week, so this week here we go. Right. Oh, you like this one straight off the bat? It's become a bit better. All right, I was wrong. After saying it's a bit boring, I was wrong. It's an excellent podcast. Love today's episode. That was the one on the 24th of June.
Hooray.
Thank you, Klimping, via Apple Podcasts.
Apart from the obvious camera chat, the banter gets better each week, which makes it more engaging. I've used Nikon cameras since the early 80s, and on the 1st of January 2019 switched to Fuji. There is a number of little gems in the podcast, and it's not all about Fuji. Thank you, Ian Mack.
What's worrying with this one is thank you for the 5-star review, by the way, from 2 Checking Out, is that somebody in the States is using the phrase coined by Jimmy Cranky in the 1980s, because they've just simply written "Fandabby-dozy."
Hey, I have another one that just says "splendid."
There we go. Yes. It's nice when you spend the time thinking of the words.
Splendid.
Philando Jones. Philando from Charleston here. Just wanted to say, out of all the photography podcasts and YouTube videos, this is my favourite, because Kevin and Neil... I'd just leave it at that, because Kevin
started and you finished.
Because Kevin and Neil are honest, yes, personable, laid back, sometimes, and there's no nonsense. Thank you. Right, this week we're starting to talk to the incredible lineup of photographers due to appear at the X Weddings 2, November 13 for the keynotes and 14th for the electives. Now, that lineup includes Fujifilm ambassador Scott Johnson, who collects awards and fellowships and decorations worldwide. I caught up with him virtually last week. I'll just say that there's a slight interference from Scott's end that we didn't have in the studio here, and certainly didn't monitor it, but it wasn't so bad so much as to can our chat, not at all. Scott will be on stage, if you like, on the 13th of November at X Weddings 2. So, Scott, for the second time in as many weeks, I'm talking to a photographer who started his pro career working the cruise ships. You're another one. I feel I've missed out.
I know, you
What
did.
have I missed out by not working the cruise ships?
Whatever you've heard, it's all true.
Is it?
It's all true.
Well, mostly I've heard about seasickness. I'm not sure I'd have enjoyed that bit. I mean,
You know what? There was only one time, and it was my first week on the ship, that I got anywhere near feeling a little bit green around the gills. But thankfully, I kept my lunch in, so it was all good.
So where were you cruising? Did you have a particular route? Was it the Caribbean, or was it?
I was actually very lucky. So we started in Miami and then went all around the Caribbean, through Panama, up Mexico, Costa Rica to San Diego. We dropped off there, picked up, went across to Hawaii and back a couple of times, and then did the route in reverse. And then I finished up in Alaska, which was if you haven't been, it's breathtaking up there.
No, I haven't been. No. And how long did you do that for?
I did 9 months on there. It was enough. My liver couldn't take any more, if I'm honest, so I had to come off.
So it's the drink fest that I've heard it is as well. Then
It is, yeah. All good things happen in the crew bar. Because there's nothing much to do. If you're at sea for 5 days and you're on the way to Hawaii, there's generally nothing to do. There's there's dartboard down there, ping pong, pool, which is difficult to play on a cruise ship. You can probably imagine. It's good fun.
So what were you photographing then?
Everything. If it moved, I did weddings on ships. I did the captain's table. We had what was called frequent cruises. So anyone were doing like their 5th and 10th and 25th cruise on the cruise line, we go up and photograph them with the captain. Formal nights, embarkations. I've been dressed up as a eagle, a moose, a pirate. You name it, mate. I've done it.
Oh, it sounds very showbiz.
It is.
Dressed up as a pirate.
Yeah.
Do you ever go on a cruise now, or has it completely put you off?
You know what? I'd love to do it, but my wife won't
Would
go.
you?
She won't go.
Won't she?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
She's seen similar to those videos on Facebook with the ship pitching and rolling in the rough seas, and she's gone, nope, that's not for me. No, not
Well, you see,
doing it.
that's exactly what I thought you'd sort of be. Never mind ping pong. You're photographing people. Your studio strobes are sliding to one side.
Well, the funny thing is, we had a Fujifilm Frontier in the lab, and obviously when when it's rough, you worry about cross contamination, the bleach getting in the dev. So we had we had to drain the tanks probably once or twice a week to freshen the dev up, because we had to keep getting contamination.
You mentioned weddings, so was the leap to weddings something that you did straight after the cruising, or how did your professional career start to lift off?
Jessops, like everyone else, I think. It was I came off the ships, needed a job. There was a job going in Jessops, and I did that for about a year, because obviously my lab background on the ships, I was running the lab in the local store, and it was there I met a photographer, and he said, I'm setting a company up, do you fancy it? I've gone, yeah, okay, I'll give it a try, and then worked for him for about 18 months, and then realised that I could do it by myself and set the company up, and that was back in 2006, and here we are at the time of recording, 2019, and it's been going well ever since.
So how many do you shoot a year typically?
I'm stupid, Neil. I do about 50. It's ridiculous.
Right, okay. Well, that's not stupid. That could be good business.
I fell in the trap of, I left full-time employment in 2008, and I left, so I left on the Friday, in the May of 2008, and the memory is I got to Victoria Station having left my job thinking, what on earth have I done? And then the credit crunch hit about 3 weeks later, and everyone had no money. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be in trouble. So I booked everything that I was getting and I was booking, and then 2010 I shot 113 weddings.
No way.
Yeah, 113.
113.
113, and then my now wife.
How did you feel?
I was destroyed. I'm not gonna lie. It was. I was a broken man. Come the Christmas of 2010, I was a broken man, and my now wife said to me, "If we have another year like that, I'm off. I can't do it." And which is fair enough. I was stupid.
So you've halved that number. So that must
Halved
feel
it.
more. Yeah, that that must feel more comfortable.
It does. It means I can manage, inquiries. I do the odd pre-shoot here and there. I do the odd post-shoot as well. So I like to get brides dressed up and go and do something fun without the pressure of the chef saying, "Come on, the soup's getting cold." So I do that 2 or 3 times a year. Like a styled fashion shoot, so I'm giving more time to myself. And now my little girl, she's 6 next week, so I do less weddings, so I can spend more time with her. Really, it's what we do it for. I think
the stylized thing, the post shoot. I didn't realise you did that. That's quite for somebody who has a more stylized. I know that you've got a documentary fellowship. We'll come to that in a little while. But when I look at your website, I see stylized.
Thank you.
Because I see pictures like the cliff picture.
Yep.
Which was that a post shoot then?
That
Because
was a post shoot. So the bride.
That
on
makes
the cliff,
sense.
Yeah, it was a post shoot because there's not many people that would do it on the wedding day. But I have no problem putting people in positions like that on a wedding day because the website is filtering people through, and they're like, "I like that," and then we'll go and stand in the middle of a field somewhere and get some nice shots at sunset, or on top of a bridge somewhere or something crazy. But no, I like to. It's not fair to practice things on a wedding day, so I do 2 or 3 post shoots a year. Mainly for me, so I can try new techniques out, try some, new posing, and then I'll roll it out if it's successful for the year after. So it's a way for me to try and practice rather than do it on the wedding day.
So do you see yourself as a more stylized? Is that really your emphasis? Is that what you enjoy more, the stylized part of shooting weddings?
Yeah, very much so. If people come into into the showroom and say, "We've seen your website, we love your style of pictures," then I'm like a Cheshire cat because I know I've got 20-25 minutes to create something fine art, very stylized, and I like looking for light, and I like to pose people properly. And when you show in the back of the camera, sometimes I go, "Oh my God, is that really me?" I went, "Well, yeah, of course it is. I've just taken it, so of course it's you." But it's just giving the confidence in the couple to now I can make something work anywhere really, which is I quite like doing.
Here's that question many new photographers ask when they're starting out, certainly in the wedding genre. How do you get the destination gigs? I mean, having people pay you to go to Italy, and I've seen Italy and I've seen America on your site, is all well and good. But how does it work? Both in terms of let's start in terms of marketing. How that works.
So I was very lucky. The first few couples that took me out to destinations were friends. So I said, just pay me to get me out there. I can use it as a marketing tool. So they paid my flight, paid my accommodation. And then I just used it and put them on the website, and all of a sudden people start seeing that you go away, and really it's just good social media, good backlinking in the website, targeting people. So the destination side, we target that quite a lot on Instagram and Facebook. So it's just getting out there, and say I was in Florence a couple of weeks ago, and that was amazing because they've seen. If you don't market it, if you don't tell people you do it, they're not going to ask. So I'm a great believer in show what you want to do, and if I'm showing destination weddings, generally they'll come through. So
financially, can it work?
Yeah,
there's really only a handful of photographers that do what I call. I might need to rephrase this, but I'll say it. Proper destination weddings. You know, where they're actually doing it as a business, and they're not doing it as something that's great for ego and good shots just for Instagram.
And that's the thing. A lot of people will go and do it and not earn any money just so they can brag and say, "Hey, look where I've been. It's been brilliant." And I'm guilty of that in the early days, and I think we've all been guilty of that. But Florence is a good example. So proper destination wedding. They covered my flight, hotel, transfers, paid me the going rate as if I was here in the UK for the wedding itself. And then we put a little bit of a supplement on because obviously I was out there Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I flew back on the Monday, so we put a little bit extra either end because I missed out on weddings. But I'm very, very fortunate. I've got a very good photographer that I work with, and he actually covered weddings whilst I was out there here for the company.
That dovetails really nicely, actually. You've mentioned other people at the studio. There's 3 of you at the studio. One of the criticisms of choosing wedding shooting as a business is it's not very scalable. If, of course, being scalable is part of your game plan, if that's what you're going into business for. Not everybody wants to. Some people are just happy being the artisan photographer on their own doing what they do. Mm-hmm. But is the size of your studio, Scott, part of that plan to make a scalable business.
Yeah, it was. It was always a plan. The reason why I didn't go to Scott Johnson Photography when I set up was because I wanted guys to work with me and for me, shooting weddings and, you know, doing 3 or 4 per Saturday, for example. But it was finding that guy or person, photographer, that I would trust to go and do it. I trialed different people, and at the point where you could say, right, you can go off and shoot by yourself, they'd all of a sudden panic and they'd forget how to do things. And I got the more complaints when I was sending other people out on my behalf than I ever had for myself. So we stopped that, and it's only been the last maybe 18 months that Abs has been going out shooting for me, and he's an absolute gem.
You have fellowships with both BIP. In fact, you've got 2 with BIP. One of them is a documentary one, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It was the documentary one is the one I'm most proud of, if I'm honest, rather than the wedding.
Yeah, and now that surprises me a little bit, that one, because when I look at your work again, I'm thinking stylized, and I don't instantly think of you as a photojournalist. I apologise.
That's fine.
You can slap me for that in the bar during the X-Weddings conference. So achieving that photojournalism one, as you say, it must have been a pinnacle.
Yeah, it really was. It was something. The wedding fellowship for me. I mean, fellowship and qualifications isn't for everybody. I mean, people have tried it, and they thought, you know what, I'm not a fan of it. And I tell my brides that I've got fellowships. I think I'm a hobbit. They just don't, you know, what's a fellowship? So it was more for personal progression and personal growth. And the wedding one was a rite of passage. But I've always seen myself as a photographer that shoots weddings and not a wedding photographer. I enjoy taking street, documentary, environmental portraiture, everything. I try and do a lot of it. So the documentary fellowship for me meant more because it meant that I was, you know, good at something else apart from weddings.
And you've got the SWPP. Is that a fellowship there, or
that's a fellowship? Yeah. So yeah,
that's a fellowship.
That's in weddings.
And you're one of only 3 photographers to hold 2 master craftsmen within the Guild of Photographers.
Yeah, I need to upgrade that. There's 4 of us now. So
there's 4.
Yeah, there's
right.
4 of us now. So
it's like Michelin stars, these things.
Well, that's the thing. I think, you know, people could say, well, what is a fellowship? And there's a good friend of mine, Dave Stanbury, and he really, you know, nailed it on the head. It's like a fellowship is like a Michelin star in photography. You know, people, you know, we need to start seeing it like that. And if you got 1 Michelin star, that's great. 2 Michelin stars is really good, and getting 3 is, you know, there's not many that have got 3.
Do you actually believe they bring something of importance to your brides and grooms, or really is it more for your credentials and credibility in terms of the fact that you're a judge for things like WPPI and things like that?
Yeah, so brides don't care, if I'm honest. Brides, you know, they see the letters behind the name and they don't care. They see the awards, they think great, they don't care. But what they care about is the result of the fellowships and the awards in the imagery that I'm taking today. So it's not a direct link, but they, you know, without going through the process, my images wouldn't be how they are now. So there's an indirect appreciation of the fellowships by looking at the work that I'm producing. I think that's the, you know, but take the letters away, they don't care.
And the same really with the awards, because there's, you're going to say I've got to update that because I've read 30.
I don't count, but again, I've got the trophies on a shelf in the back of the showroom, so they come in and they're there. If people want to ask about them, they ask about them, but I don't brag about it anymore because you can put yourself out of the market by thinking he's got all these awards and fellowships, he's going to be too expensive, we can't afford this guy straight away.
Well, it's the whole reason why I park my fleet of Ferraris down the road, don't let people see
You're sitting in your gold-plated house.
Yeah. So X-Weddings, what sort of stuff are you talking about there? What's the talk about?
It's basically going to be drawing on the fine art portraiture and kind of like the stylized shoots that I do. It's mainly about how I look for light, what I do in situations where there's no light. You know, I bring, you know, some various different bits with me on the day, but also I'll be going into showing scenes in which most people would just kind of walk past and disregard, and showing the before picture off the iPhone and say this is where it was and this is the finished result. And so it's kind of hopefully going to be opening the, you know, people that are going to be attending to actually think, oh, I can shoot there, you know, I ain't going to try things a bit differently and not walk past things anymore, and just try and without being patronising, to say, look, just look further beyond what you're seeing, just kind of vision the final print, and that's what I'm going to be talking about.
X-Wedding tickets, of course, are available through the website. Kev, you're the man for this bit of the
x-weddings.co.uk. We've got some good spot prizes in already now from X-Rite and Jorgensen and Fujifilm.
Oh, Jorgensen going to be there?
Yes, Jorgensen albums will be there.
Love Jorgensen albums.
Jorgensen will be there. Fujifilm will be there. I'm not sure if X-Rite Photo will be there, but they will be supplying some stuff for us. There will be all the usual goodies. I mean, for those that went last year will remember that it's quite a long day. The keynote day. There's 6 speakers, 6 hours of talks, but this time I've spread it out a little bit more. Obviously, lunch is included, and there's breaks, and then we have the nice Q&A session at the end where we all stand at the front and people throw questions at us, and that's when we'll be throwing out the spot prizes to the winners.
Are they heavy?
Yeah, they're really heavy, and all that for less than £200, including your lunch and friends for life.
Ali Stewart, actually, I think you might have mentioned him a couple of weeks ago, if not last week.
Yeah.
Said, I've taken the plunge and signed up for the X conference in Bath, or Bath, depending upon what part of the world you're born in. I've had the hotel booked since you announced the date. You better be coming on the Indian meal in the evening then, because we always do one of those.
Indeed.
I thought it's sensible to get a ticket before they all sell out. I was also swayed by the promise that Gemma was doing the goodie bags, and that's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Gemma is very good at the goodie bags.
It's very important. I'm going to put you in the important file down that. Right. Okay. Questions. Do you want me to? Have you got one?
I'll go. This is from Helen.
Yep.
No surname, just Helen. Thank you for...
So good they named her once.
Thank you for creating the wonderful Fujifilm podcast. It brightens my daily commute, etc.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah.
Etc. Although I'm going to read a little bit at the end of it. I used to fall asleep as soon as I got on the train. Now I'm desperately trying to stay awake so I don't miss a thing. Bless you. My boyfriend and I would like to join the September Brighton meetup on the 10th of September. All details will be in the Facebook group, the Fujicast Facebook group, as well as...
Please use that Facebook group as well.
As well as the website.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely, because I appreciate not everybody does use Facebook. Also a question for the show. I love photography training, holidays and workshops. With the X-T3, I'd like to learn more about video to utilise its features fully. Do you have any recommendations of videographers that do workshops, holiday training, etc.? I'm more interested in learning the artistic, creative techniques than the business side of things, as it's just for fun. Well, 2 things.
Right.
I would like to plug my 5-day London excursion workshop, which is also in September. However, it's not really for video stuff. It's stills.
I could come and do video.
You could do it. Yeah, absolutely. You got a spare 5 days in September. Then secondly, I was gonna just look lovingly across the table at Neil. He's your man really for all that stuff. He does workshops and various other things in terms of the video side of stuff. So
I tend to do more one-to-ones personally.
Okay.
Very happy to travel with anybody to France or Spain or
not allowed to bring your boyfriend by saying to it.
No. Don't say things like that. So I tend to do more one-to-ones when it comes to video stuff, and of course I'll be at the X-Weddings thing on this second day doing a workshop which involves video. I don't know of many video courses.
That's very true. Yeah,
abroad. There's lots of guys and girls all over Europe and America, I'm sure, and Canada and so on and so forth, that do workshops on how to use your.
Yeah, and there's a lot of these like excursion type things where you can go to Iceland for a week and take lots of pictures.
You read that thing about the Icelandics again, very very sick and tired of the influencers traipsing across.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. Taking selfies in front of the crashed aeroplane and stuff.
Driving off road as well, where they're not supposed to drive off road and damaging the environment. Because Iceland is one of the top, if not the top, destination, it seems, for influencers,
because it's really cheap to get to but really expensive when you're there. I'd love to go to Iceland.
Well, I did actually go to Iceland, but I flew through it on the way to Boston, so I was there for an hour and a half.
I've looked down on it many times from an aeroplane at 30,000 feet.
Amazing place.
Okay, so next question, Paul Robson. Hi, great podcast, makes my drive to work on a Monday entertaining. One of the questions last week asked for tips on wrist pain. I have been an arthritis sufferer for a number of years and changed to the Fuji system because of the size and weight. Wrist supports help, but wear them before the pain starts. Okay, so
good advice.
Wrist supports. Question: Can you explain the XT3 shutter options?
Can you?
Yeah. So you have two options: electronic shutter and mechanical shutter.
Oh, those options.
I presume that's the question. Yeah.
I think I was going to have to take mine apart. I've got the screwdriver at the ready. Hold on.
So electronic shutter is essentially going to allow you to shoot at a much higher shutter speed, 32 thousandths of a second. So if you're shooting in bright daylight and you still want to use a fast aperture, you can get away with it. Mechanical shutter is always going to be better if you can, I think the XT30 goes up to 4 thousandths of a second, XT3 8,000, X-Pro 2 8,000. And you're going to the electronic shutter does have some limitations, and you will see banding in extreme artificial light, and you can sometimes get rolling shutter effect. But by and large, if you're outside and you want to shoot in bright light with a fast aperture, then the electronic shutter is your friend. You'll be able to shoot at something like 30 frames per second in the sports finder mode on the XT3 with the electronic shutter. It's you're making a film effectively. So I think that's the question. Electronic shutter, mechanical shutter. All the Fujifilm cameras have them these days.
This one's from Mark in Vancouver, Canada. Hello, gentlemen. If Kevin is reading this, move on to the question section. If Neil is reading this, thank you for producing such an excellent show. Variety of segments, high production value, and charming personalities make for an informative and entertaining show. Thank you, Mark. Questions. Kevin's wife, Gemma. Gemma gets a lot of mentions. She's got her own little fan club going on, isn't she?
I'm just hoping Jeff Goldblum doesn't write in, because that'll be it. There'll be no goodie bags at the conference then.
Kevin wife's Gemma mentioned something, and I'm paraphrasing from memory, that she was confident that Kevin would succeed when moving to photography because of his business acumen and previous business experience. I've been focusing so much on photographic techniques but know nothing about business. What would you recommend to learn the basics of business and entrepreneurship? Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. That's a very good question, actually. I'm going to... this is from Mark. Savoy if you speak English. Savoir if you speak French. If you parle le French, Rodney. Savoir. So, yeah, let's... There are... I think there's two questions here. So let's go with the first one. What about learning the basics of business? Or do you think people are just born with that savvy or savoir?
No,
I
don't think so. I think it's definitely something that is important and something you can learn. Honestly, there is so much stuff out there about creating a business and setting up good business and everything, but really, I'm always very skeptical about these kind of the adverts you see on Facebook and things like that. 21 tips to build your business and get 1 million followers on Instagram and everything. You know what I would do if I was... Actually, this is what I'm going to recommend, okay? Go to Amazon, type in 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing.
Oh, that's a brilliant book.
And then, once you've bought that, add the next one to your basket, 22 Immutable Laws of Branding. Al Rice and... can't remember the other guy who wrote it now. Anyway, these books are both from the 70s. I think one of them's from the 60s. Yep. But the 22 Immutable Laws are fact, not fiction, for modern business, online business, every business you can possibly think of. Read those, think about every single one of them. They're very simple, and actually they're all common sense, and when you read them you think, my God, yeah, that makes so much sense, and then try and apply those to your business. 22 Immutable Laws.
And there's another book, while we're talking about book lists, that's not necessarily about business, but it's really interesting because there's a side to it that's important, I think, when you start out your business and you begin by buying everything you can buy under the sun. Everything in life you have. I think that's the title of the book. I will check that, actually. But that's a really, really good book as well. Right, there was another question from Mark. You mentioned in the past it's important to maintain and present a consistent style in your work. How do you go about doing this? Do you create and save your own presets in Lightroom, or is it something that you develop through working and the feel you put into your photos and edits? Well, you do work with presets. I work with presets. I might just add, I've been using and trying out the Reggie Ballesteros presets. He was a guest on the podcast 3 or 4 episodes ago, and I found those really, really good. I've tampered with them a bit more contrast because they were a bit. He does crush a bit the blacks, and so I tempered that, and I really like using them actually.
Good.
What about you? You have your own presets?
I have my own presets I've built and stuff, but I think it goes beyond that. It goes beyond looking at the picture. It also goes into what you choose to shoot with. So one of the reasons why I pretty much always shoot with 35-85 full frame equivalent is because the images have a very defined look. And when people look on my website, they can, subconsciously, they can know exactly the types of images they're going to get.
You feel comfortable actually if you're looking at one or two maximum.
Yeah, I mean,
focal lengths.
Absolutely. It's nothing wrong with using zooms and nothing wrong with using very wide angles and stuff like that. But if you're throwing a lot of that into the mix, then people, it's not really concentrating. It's not really consolidating the brand, I don't think.
Yeah.
So just even the choice of lenses that you use can do that. But yeah, the presets. I used to shoot just JPEG and add a little bit of contrast to them, but then, as soon as everybody else started doing that, I changed a bit because you do need to differentiate somehow in a little way.
So you used to have a very stock look to your pictures was the slightly warm tone,
muddy,
which you've stopped doing.
Yeah, I've pulled back on that now because a lot of other people were doing it, and not just because of that, but because I felt it was time to move on a little bit. But I still have warmth in there. It's just not so much. Plus, I calibrated my screen, and then I realised
how warm it was. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
A good question,
for your question. I don't think have I. Did I do my strap earlier? In this?
No, not this episode.
That's it. I'm sending a strap to Mark Savoie. It's on its way to you, Mark in Vancouver. Thank you very much for your question. Do we have time for one more? And then that's it, I think.
Yeah, okay, let's go.
You got one?
I got one, the last of the paper one. Graham, you're the last of the tree killers.
Yeah. We're going. Well, I've still got a few paper ones. You're going paperless from next week's episode.
Yes, great podcast. Really enjoyed the content and find the episodes both informative and interesting. Yep. I saw Kevin's review of the XT100 on his website and wondered if he cared to elaborate on this camera. Is it sluggish to use? Why has it flown under the radar? How is the autofocus compared to the X-Trans cameras? I'm seriously considering buying one and would appreciate your input. Okay, so this is from Graham Bell. I'm not sure if I mentioned the name. And XT100 actually is an interesting camera because it's...
Sorry, did you just say Alexander Graham Bell?
I said Graham Bell.
Oh, Graham Bell,
not
right.
Alexander Graham Bell.
That would have been amazing, from beyond the grave.
No, he wouldn't, because he wouldn't have sent us an email. He'd have just called on the phone.
That's true. Small things.
Yeah, we got dad jokes galore. So the XT100 was still is an interesting camera. I still have it, and or do I? Did it go back to Fujifilm? I think it went back to Fujifilm actually. That's the one I took to Brighton with us last year.
Oh yes, yeah.
And
you were going to use that as your main vlogger.
Yeah, I was going to use it as my main vlogging camera, and I haven't really done any vlogging since, so I kind of haven't. However, it's not as quick. It's not as powerful as the other X-Trans cameras, but it's something like £300. It's half the price of a phone. It's for what you get, and it's an interchangeable camera. It's aimed squarely at kind of people who, I think this camera is there to entice people into the X-Trans range or the Fujifilm X range and the lenses and everything, because I don't think I'm saying anything out of line here, and I think it's true for all manufacturers. Camera manufacturers don't really make any money off selling camera bodies. They make money off the lenses. So
is that the way it works?
Camera bodies often are sold very close to the manufacturing cost.
Is that right?
Yeah, and it's the lenses that are where they can make money. So the more people that come into the marketplace, the more lenses they will sell, of course. And so XT100 is great because it's a real kind of entry level, but it's good. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I mean, you're not going to be using it to shoot sports and wildlife, and I wouldn't use it for a wedding. It's single card slots, but it's got it's got that fully articulating flip screen, which is the great thing. That's if they could just take that fully articulating flip screen and stick it on an XT3 or not even an XT3 but XT30 or an X70, X80, whoa, that's it.
That would be your perfect camera.
Yeah. I don't think we'll ever see an X70 replacement, sadly.
Thank you very much for your questions this week. Before I start the music, we mentioned it last week, but we're really wanting to build the community and audience. The new Facebook group, the Fujicast Facebook group, is part of that. And we'd like to invest a lot more time in recording some interviews, taking the show on the road. We're going to Brighton. We're recording a show in Brighton on September the 10th, isn't it? We're having a photo walk and just meet up and
Yeah, we've had quite a few people interested in that, I think. It'd be good.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
September the 10th.
So we were thinking, if you can leave a review, you're an absolute star. Thank you very much for those. If you can share in any way, as I said last week, so that'll be if you're a member of a Facebook group, maybe Twitter, or via your podcast app, you are a complete legend, or leg-end. Couple of seconds just to keep those cogs turning nicely, and we'd appreciate it a lot, so thank you very much. That's in advance, obviously. Thank you for your questions too. Lifeblood of the show. We can't shovel coal into that firebox until you send us emails to click@fujicast.co.uk. Big love to our friends at Simpler Straps for letting us give away a camera strap each to our favourite email question of the week. Go to simpler.us. Payoff this week from Kev is Rosa.
My dad's Instagram is Kevin Mullins Photography. See his films on YouTube at Documentary Eye. His website is kevinmullinsphotography.co.uk. Or for street workshops, training and everything Fujifilm, go to f16.clip.
While you're in Spain, by the way, we're going to do the show a little bit from Spain. Well, you're going to be in Spain. I'm here. The challenge is I want you to get at least one Spanish person to do your payoff, and a couple of members of your family.
Oh, that'll be easy.
Is it?
Yeah.
A Spanish person you don't know.
Yeah.
In a bar somewhere.
Yeah, easy.
Give them a script.
Yeah.
All right.
Quisiera dos cervezas, por favor.
That's the only thing you know. How Jack's doing my one.
My dad's Instagram is Neil James. See his films on YouTube at Neil James Photo. His website is neiljames.com for pictures and one-to-one mentoring. And you can hear his other photography podcast, which is called Breathe Pictures, wherever you get your podcasts.
Paul Benson wrote in, by the way, just sent a little message, and he said every single week you say see you next week. In reality, you aren't seeing us next week because you're on a wireless kind of
Speak to you next week.
Speak to you next week.
Speak to you next week.
Paul, does that make you feel better?
Yeah.
I'm glad.